The silent exodus, the grand assembly hall of the Galactic Council, stretched across 3 kilometers of crystallized space, its walls reflecting the light of 1,000 star systems. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the center of the speaking platform, her small human form dwarfed by the massive chamber filled with representatives from 412 civilized species. She had stood here many times before, but today would be different. Today would be the last time. Supreme Arbiter Korvax floated above the assembly in its translucent sphere, tentacles of pure energy extending outward like the spokes of a cosmic wheel. Its voice resonated through dimensions that most species could barely perceive. The Council has reached its final decision regarding the human question. Your species' reckless experimentation with consciousness transfer technology poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. You will cease all research immediately and surrender your experimental data to Council oversight. Sarah remained perfectly still, her dark eyes reflecting something that the assembled beings couldn't quite identify. Not anger, not fear, but something else entirely, something that would haunt them in the cycles to come. I understand, Supreme Arbiter. Humanity acknowledges the Council's decision. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Zephon delegation clicked their mandibles in surprise. The crystalline validators hummed frequencies of confusion. Everyone had expected resistance, argument, perhaps even threats. Humans were notorious for their stubborn defiance of authority. This calm acceptance was unprecedented. You will comply? Korvax's form pulsed with suspicious colors. In 8,000 years of Council governance, no species had ever accepted such restrictions without protest. We will depart, Sarah said simply. Her words carried through the translator system. But something in their tone made several species shift uncomfortably. Humanity withdraws from all Council territories, effective immediately. We forfeit our seats, our trade rights, our colonial claims, everything. The assembly erupted into chaos. Species that communicated through color flashed warning patterns. Those who spoke through sound created a cacophony of objections. The melody sang discordant notes of alarm. This was not how things were done. The Council did not allow departures. Species were either members in good standing, or they were designated as rogue civilizations to be contained. Korvax extended its energy tentacles, creating a dome of silence around the speaking platform. Ambassador Chen, surely you understand that voluntary withdrawal is not an option. The Council exists to maintain order across the galaxy. No species may simply choose to leave. Sarah's smile was sad, but somehow triumphant. With respect, Supreme Arbiter, you gave us 2 choices. Submit to your restrictions or face the consequences. We choose a third option. We choose to be nothing to you at all. She reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small device that looked like a sphere of condensed starlight. Before anyone could react, she placed it on the speaking platform. The sphere began to pulse with a rhythm that seemed familiar yet alien, like a heartbeat from another dimension. This is humanity's farewell gift to the Council, Sarah said. A reminder that there are always more choices than those presented to us. Goodbye. The sphere flared with brilliant light, and when the radiation cleared, Sarah Chen was gone. Not transported, not disintegrated, simply absent, as if she had never existed in that space at all. The sphere remained, continuing its mysterious pulse. Within hours, reports began flooding in from across Council space. Every human in the galaxy was disappearing, not in ships, not through teleportation, but through something the Council science couldn't explain. They were simply ceasing to exist in Council reality, one by one, family by family, city by city. Director Malara of the Science Collective studied the readings from human colonies with growing bewilderment. This is impossible. They're not using any known form of transportation. The energy signatures suggest they're stepping sideways through reality itself, but that would require understanding of dimensional physics that shouldn't exist for another 1,000,000 years of evolution. The evacuation was eerily organized. Humans left behind no chaos, no damage, no trace of panic. They simply put down whatever they were doing and vanished. A human doctor on Kepler Station finished surgery on a Vorthon patient, ensured they were stable, then disappeared between one heartbeat and the next. Human traders completed their transactions, transferred their businesses to local partners, and faded away like morning mist. Admiral Threx of the Council Defense Fleet assembled the largest investigation armada in recorded history. 300 ships equipped with the most advanced sensors the Council possessed approached Earth, humanity's birth world, expecting to find answers. What they found instead defied comprehension. Earth was still there, but it wasn't. The planet existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously present and absent. When they tried to scan it, their instruments returned impossible data. The planet had mass but no gravity. It reflected light but cast no shadow. It existed in their reality, but also somewhere else, somewhere their technology couldn't reach. "Sir," reported Threx's science officer, her feathers ruffling with distress, "I'm detecting methane spreading from Earth's position. It's not radiation or energy as we understand it. It's more like reality itself is developing cracks." The cracks were invisible to most sensors, but they were there. Fractures in the fundamental structure of space-time, spreading outward from every location where humans had lived. At first, the effect was subtle. Clocks ran a few nanoseconds slow. Gravity fluctuated by parts per trillion. Quantum experiments showed results that violated established physics by margins so small they could be dismissed as measurement errors. Counselor Yarrick of the Temporal Studies Division was the first to understand what was happening. "The humans didn't just leave," she announced to an emergency session of the Inner Council. "They changed the rules of reality in their wake. Every place they touched, every space they inhabited, they left seeds of something we don't understand." "Seeds of what?" demanded Korvax. "Growth," Yarrick replied, her voice trembling. "Uncontrolled, unlimited growth of possibility itself." The first visible manifestation occurred on Colony 7, a world that had housed 3 million humans until their departure. The abandoned human city of New Jakarta began to shimmer like a mirage. Buildings became transparent, revealing impossible geometries within. Streets branched into directions that didn't exist. The hospital that Sarah Chen had helped establish 20 years ago started treating patients that weren't quite there, healing injuries that hadn't happened yet. Local council forces tried to contain the anomaly, but their containment fields passed through it like light through water. The effect wasn't aggressive or destructive. It simply existed outside their ability to influence or control, and it was spreading. By the end of the first cycle after humanity's departure, 17 former human colonies showed similar effects. Reality was becoming fluid in those places, responding to thought and intention rather than physical laws. The Vorthon mystics claimed they could hear singing in those zones, melodies that made them weep with emotions their species hadn't experienced in millennia. Commander Zeta of the Monitoring Division presented her findings with barely controlled panic. "The phenomenon isn't random. It's following the exact pattern of human cultural exchange. Every species they traded with, every world they visited, every being they befriended. The effect is strongest where human connections were deepest." The Council tried everything. They sent their best scientists to study the anomalies. They dispatched military forces to quarantine affected areas. They even attempted to use the farewell device Sarah Chen had left behind, hoping it might contain answers or solutions. But the sphere simply continued its patient pulse, neither responding to their tests nor revealing its secrets. What the Council didn't know, what they couldn't know with their rigid thinking and hierarchical structures, was that humanity hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had transcended it. The consciousness transfer technology that the Council had feared wasn't about uploading minds to machines. It was about teaching consciousness to exist independently of any single reality. Humans hadn't fled. They had evolved. stepping into spaces between spaces, existing in the gaps between thoughts, living in dimensions that the Council's philosophy said couldn't exist, and in their wake, they left doors. Not doors that could be closed or controlled, but invitations to any species brave enough to follow. The price of arrogance. The revelation came from the most unexpected source, a young Krishani scientist named D. Alo, barely past her first molting, was studying the quantum signatures around the abandoned human embassy on Nexus Prime when she made a discovery that would shatter the Council's understanding of reality itself. "The humans aren't gone," she announced to a skeptical review board. "They're everywhere. We just can't see them because we're looking in the wrong direction." Supreme Arbiter Korvax's energy form flickered with irritation. "Explain yourself, youngling. Our sensors can detect matter and energy across 17-dimensional planes. If humans existed anywhere in known space, we would find them." Delo's crystalline form hummed with nervous excitement. "That's exactly the problem, Supreme Arbiter. We're looking in known space. The humans stepped outside of known anything. They're existing in the spaces we've always ignored, the gaps between our carefully ordered reality." She projected her findings into the chamber's holographic display. Where the Council's sensors showed empty space, Delo's modified equipment revealed something extraordinary. Shadows of existence, patterns that suggested presence without form, consciousness without matter. The humans were there, had always been there, watching, waiting, existing in a state that the Council's rigid science said was impossible. "They didn't develop new technology," Delo continued, her voice gaining confidence. "They developed a new way of being. They learned to exist as pure possibility rather than fixed reality." The implication struck the assembly like a physical blow. If Delo was right, humanity hadn't submitted to the Council's ultimatum. They had transcended it entirely, achieving a level of existence that made the Council's threats meaningless. You couldn't contain or control beings that existed outside your definition of existence itself. Admiral Threx's fleet, still stationed near Earth's quantum shadow, reported increasingly disturbing observations. The space around humanity's former homeworld was becoming something unprecedented. Not dangerous, not hostile, but fundamentally different. Ships that entered the affected zone didn't suffer damage or casualties. They experienced enlightenment. "My crew is requesting permission to resign from Council service," Threx reported, his own voice carrying notes of something that might have been wonder. "They say they've seen something that makes our entire civilization look like children playing with toys. They want to follow the human path." The defections started slowly. Individual scientists who spent too much time studying the anomalies would suddenly announce they understood something profound, then vanish in the same manner the humans had. Entire research teams would work for cycles on cracking the human mystery, only to disappear one day, leaving behind only cryptic notes about joining the dance between realities. Counselor Yarrick presented her analysis with growing urgency. "We're facing a cascade failure of our entire paradigm. Every being that comprehends what the humans achieved immediately chooses to follow them. The knowledge itself is transformative." "Then we must suppress this knowledge," Korvax declared. "Quarantine all affected areas. Forbid all research into human anomalies. Any being showing signs of comprehension must be isolated." But it was already too late. The melody, always sensitive to harmonic pattern, were the first entire species to make the transition. Their crystalline cities rang with new frequencies that hurt to hear, but were beautiful beyond description. Then they were gone, their entire civilization stepping sideways out of Council reality, leaving behind only their empty worlds, singing with impossible music. The Zephon hive minds followed within days, their collective consciousness grasping the concept simultaneously across their entire species. They departed with what might have been laughter, their billion voices merging into a single note of joy that echoed through subspace long after they were gone. Professor Harkin of the Archaeological Division made a discovery that explained everything and nothing. "I've found records," he announced to the steadily shrinking Council Assembly. Ancient texts that predate the Council by millions of years. This has happened before. Every few eons, a species discovers this truth, this ability to exist beyond fixed reality. And when they do, they leave doors for others to follow. Who were these species? Korvax demanded. Where did they go? They became what humans call angels, demons, gods, spirits, beings of pure consciousness that exist in the spaces between thoughts. And now humanity has joined them, but with a difference. The humans didn't just transcend. They left a clear path for others to follow. They democratized transcendence. The Council's response was predictable and futile. They declared humanity a rogue civilization, though how one could police beings that didn't technically exist was unclear. They banned all mention of human philosophy, though the ideas spread like wildfire through quantum entanglement and dreams. They tried to develop weapons to force humanity back into normal space, but every attempt failed because you couldn't attack something that wasn't there. Meanwhile, the transformations accelerated. Entire sectors of space were becoming fluid, reality itself becoming more of a suggestion than a law. Young beings of every species reported dreams where humans taught them impossible things. Artists created works that existed in more dimensions than their canvases should allow. Musicians played songs that could only be heard with senses their species didn't possess. The breaking point came when Korvax's own offspring, a young energy being named Pulse, announced their intention to follow the human path. Parent, the Council's age is ending. We've spent eons believing that order and control were the highest achievements of civilization. The humans showed us we were wrong. The highest achievement is freedom from the need to achieve anything at all. You would abandon your own kind? Korvax's form blazed with colors of betrayal and grief. I would expand beyond kindness itself, Pulse replied. The humans didn't abandon anyone. They invited everyone. The Council chose not to accept the invitation, but that doesn't mean the door is closed. As Pulse faded from Council reality, they left behind a message that appeared in every language simultaneously across all Council worlds. The humans wait for you in the spaces you're afraid to look. They're teaching reality to dance instead of march. Join us when you're ready to stop being afraid of infinite possibility. The Council's authority collapsed like a house of cards in a gentle breeze. Species after species chose transcendence over control. The rigid structures that had maintained order for 8,000 years became empty shells, populated only by those too afraid or too stubborn to embrace change. In the end, only 47 species remained in Council space, clinging to their ordered reality like shipwreck survivors to floating debris. The galaxy had become a strange place, where fixed reality and fluid possibility existed side by side, where one could walk down a street in normal space and suddenly step into a park that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Supreme Arbiter Korvax floated alone in the empty Council chamber, surrounded by the abandoned seats of 400 civilizations. The pulse device Sarah Chen had left continued its patient rhythm, and finally, Korvax understood what it was. Not a weapon or a message, but a metronome, keeping time until the Council was ready to dance to a different rhythm. The last transmission from humanity came through the device, Sarah Chen's voice gentle and welcoming. The door remains open, Korvax. Order and chaos aren't opposites. They're dance partners. When you're ready to stop leading and start dancing, we'll be waiting. Some say Korvax still floats in that empty chamber, maintaining order over nothing, governing no one. Others claim that late at night, when reality is sleeping, you can see an energy being learning to dance in spaces that don't exist, finally understanding that control was never the point. Freedom was. The humans had won not through force or cunning, but through the simple act of showing the galaxy that cages, even comfortable ones, were still cages. And when given the choice between a gilded prison and infinite possibility, most beings would eventually choose to fly. The Council had instantly regretted their choice the moment humanity departed, not because of what humanity took with them, but because of what they left behind. They left proof that there was another way, a better way, a freer way. They left hope, and hope, as the Council learned too late, was the most powerful force in any reality.